Think about Las Vegas for a second. The entire city is basically built on top of a multi-billion-dollar security apparatus, right? I mean, casinos have surveillance systems that literally rival government intelligence agencies, and it's all designed with one goal in mind: stopping cheaters. But what if I told you that a hardworking construction contractor managed to bypass this entire massive system? Today's explainer covers an absolutely thrilling true story of deception. We're going to look at exactly how a regular guy with zero criminal background managed to become Vegas's most infamous counterfeiter. So it begs a pretty wild question. How do you steal millions of dollars from a modern casino using nothing but boiling water? Well, to answer that, we really have to look at the background of our mastermind here, a guy named Eric Morikawa. Morikawa was an American of Japanese descent who moved out to Las Vegas back in 2000. And here's the thing, he wasn't a gambler, he was a builder. He went out there to capitalize on the booming construction industry. But one day, after a really grueling shift, he happens to meet Jeremy Lewis, an ex-con who actually had some forgery experience. Feeling sympathetic, Morikawa gives him a job. And for a while, everything was going smoothly. That is, until 2004 hit, and the construction and real estate crash absolutely devastated Las Vegas. Practically overnight, demand just evaporated. Morikawa's business started collapsing, leaving both him and Jeremy completely desperate, struggling to feed their families and just drowning in debt. Then, one day while driving home, Morikawa spots a casino billboard advertising this massive $5,000 chip. He turns to Jeremy and asks, would making a plastic chip really be that difficult? Jeremy, of course, instantly encourages the idea, and Morikawa justified it to himself, figuring the casinos were already stealing from everyone else anyway. So their very first attempt was trying to build these chips entirely from scratch. They went out and bought clay, sand, plastics, and started trying to replicate the exact weight and texture right there in Morikawa's garage. And remarkably, they actually matched the weight perfectly. But building them from scratch failed for one absolutely critical reason: the sound. You see, when you drop a real casino chip on a table, it makes this distinct, slightly hollow plastic clicking sound. But when they dropped their homemade chips, they sounded incredibly heavy, like solid rocks hitting the felt. Any experienced dealer would hear the difference instantly, so they needed a totally new strategy. They needed to pivot to altering. Okay, let's dive into this because this is where the genius really kicks in. Morikawa realized he didn't actually need to manufacture a chip. He just needed to upgrade one that already existed. They focused on the Green Ranch Casino and realized they could take an authentic $1 chip, which was gray with turquoise stripes, and turn it into a $100 chip, which was gray with black stripes. Think about that for a second. That is a staggering 9,900% return on investment per chip. And the best part, they didn't have to fake the sound or the weight anymore because the base of the chip was 100% real. To pull this off, they developed this highly efficient 10-minute technical process. Step 1. Drop that $1 chip into boiling water. This perfectly melted the glue holding the center sticker without warping the plastic underneath. Step 2. Use masking tape and a super precise layer of spray paint to change those turquoise stripes to black. Step 3. Take a scanner and some glossy paper. Print a flawless replica of the $100 center sticker and glue it right on. Finally, step 4. And this is wild. They had to bypass the UV security. Under a black light, the real $100 chip revealed this glowing magician's hat. So Morikawa literally bought an invisible ink pen and hand-drew that UV hat onto every single counterfeit chip. So they had the chips, but the crucial point is how they actually got the money out of the casino. Because obviously, if they just walked up to the cashier with hundreds of chips out of nowhere, surveillance would instantly flag them. Their laundering strategy was honestly brilliant. They would walk in, buy real chips with cash right at a blackjack table, then walk back out to the parking lot where there are no cameras. They'd swap those real chips for their flawless counterfeits in the car, walk right back inside, and head to the cashier to cash out. If anyone ever asked questions, the casino had security tapes proving they had just bought chips at the table. And this scheme was wildly successful. They eventually expanded to target 8 major Vegas casinos. But as the money started rolling in, their lifestyles sharply diverged. Morikawa remained incredibly secretive. Whenever his wife noticed designer bags or fancy dinners, he just quietly hid the truth, claiming he'd landed some really lucrative business contracts. But on the complete opposite end of the spectrum, you have Jeremy Lewis, who just went totally off the rails. He started renting out these massive $1,000 a night suites at the Riviera Hotel. He was blowing cash on endless partying, drugs, and worst of all, he started recklessly bragging about his newfound wealth. And that reckless behavior leads us right to their fatal mistake. While out partying one night, Jeremy wanted to impress a woman, so he just flat out bragged to her about exactly how they were stealing from the casinos. He probably thought it made him look like some kind of criminal mastermind, but instead, she immediately turned around and blackmailed them. She demanded $10,000 just to keep her mouth shut. Morikawa was absolutely furious, but he paid her. The problem is, a few days later, she came back demanding even more. This time, Morikawa put his foot down and firmly refused. So, in retaliation, she went straight to the Nevada Gaming Control Board. So the gaming control agents get the tip, they review the casino tapes, spot the parking lot swaps, and secure a warrant. Fast forward to April 1st, 2005. Morikawa hears a knock on his front door. He opens it to find a polite man explaining that his son accidentally threw a baseball into Morikawa's backyard. The very second Morikawa turned his back to go look, the man grabbed him. Armed agents burst out from the bushes. It was a massive, coordinated raid. They stormed right into his garage and found the whole operation. The boiling water setups, the exact spray paints, the stacks of counterfeits. The game was officially up. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is how completely absurd the legal situation became. Because the casino industry is so incredibly powerful in Vegas, the judge clearly wanted to make an absolute example out of them. They set an unprecedented bail of $5 million for Morikawa, a number that is usually reserved for international flight risks or violent criminals. But Morikawa went out and hired a highly skilled lawyer. And because Morikawa had a completely clean record prior to this, his lawyer successfully appealed that massive bail, getting it dropped from $5 million down to just $12,000. Morikawa paid it and walked right out the front door. Jeremy, on the other hand, had a prior record, so he stayed locked up. But, as we established earlier, desperation makes people do crazy things. By 2006, Morikawa was out on bail waiting for his trial, but he couldn't work and he was completely broke from his astronomical legal fees. Now, while he was briefly in maximum security, he had actually met a Russian mobster who was deeply impressed by his casino scheme. Drowning in debt, Morikawa makes a fateful call. He reaches out to that mobster and agrees to a highly dangerous deal. He would secretly train the Russian mob in his exact counterfeiting methods in exchange for a 25% cut of all their profits. And this whole situation brilliantly illustrates the fundamental difference between an artisan and a thug. Morikawa's original success relied entirely on his builder-honed perfectionism, right? He obsessed over exact paint thickness and getting flawless sticker alignment. The Russian mobsters, however, had absolutely zero craftsmanship. They were hasty, they were sloppy, and they just wanted fast cash. So even with Morikawa personally training them, the chips they produced had visibly flawed colors and misaligned stripes. Almost immediately, a casino cashier noticed a chip in her tray that looked completely wrong, and she instantly flagged it as a fake. So, the Gaming Control Board gets alerted yet again. They review the new tapes, identify the mobsters, and set up their surveillance teams. And you are not going to believe this. The agents literally tracked the mobsters right back to Morikawa's house, catching him red-handed for the second time in under a year. When they arrived, he was actively conducting a counterfeiting training session right there in his garage with all the tools laid out on the table. The agents surrounded the house, and he was arrested on the spot, shutting down his operation forever. But this all builds to an incredible piece of dramatic irony. After everything was said and done, Morikawa actually admitted later on that he had successfully stolen over $1 million from the casinos. But when it came time for the trial, prosecutors hit a massive brick wall. His original fakes? They were simply too good. They had blended so perfectly into the casino's legitimate chip circulation that it was literally impossible for authorities to separate his flawless counterfeits from the real ones. And because of this, out of an estimated $1 million stolen, prosecutors could only definitively prove a mere $36,000 in fraud. And that brings us to the ultimate conclusion of Morikawa's personal arc. Think about this. His incredible perfectionism, the very thing that made his crime so insanely successful in the first place, ironically saved him from a lengthy prison sentence because prosecutors could only tie him to that $36,000. His lawyer managed to secure a miraculously light sentence. Morikawa pled guilty to 6 charges, and his punishment? Just 5 years of probation and community service. That's it. He served absolutely 0 additional jail time. The guy walked away from an estimated $1 million heist with what amounts to a slap on the wrist. But Morikawa's heist left a massive legacy. It permanently changed Las Vegas. His simple boiling water trick completely humiliated a multi-billion-dollar industry, and it forced every major casino to completely overhaul their security protocols. The result? They implemented RFID, or radio frequency identification.
Today, if you go to Vegas, every high-value casino chip has a tiny electronic microchip embedded inside it. Scanners at the tables instantly read these tags to verify the exact value and location of the chip. So if someone tries to paint a $1 chip today, the computer instantly flags it, rendering Morikawa's entire method completely obsolete.
Which leaves us with this final thought to chew on. Morikawa beat the physical system with nothing but some paint and boiling water, and in doing so, he forced the entire industry to go digital. But we live in an age where every single piece of technology has its own weaknesses, right? So now that every single chip in a high-stakes casino relies on an embedded microchip, what's the next vulnerability hackers are going to find? Will the next great casino heist happen not in a dusty garage with spray paint, but on a laptop with a radio frequency cloner? It's definitely something to think about. Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and I'll catch you on the next one.